But let's go ahead here. So I am Bruce Wawrzyniak, and I am the founder and president of Now Hear This Incorporated, which does public relations, marketing, the web, media relations, social media. I have clients in Hollywood and Las Vegas, here in Tampa, and other points in between. And as it relates to some of what you're going to hear, I've gotten successful placements for myself, for clients, for other employers in USA Today, on SiriusXM Radio, network TV affiliates, and a lot more. I'm also the creator and host of the weekly Now Hear This Entertainment podcast. I'm actually doing a presentation this afternoon at 2 o'clock about podcasting, the power of podcasting, enhance your brand and expand your reach. I have a long career in sports and entertainment public relations. And if you wonder how I'm doing all these things or how I did all these things or some combination thereof, it's by exactly what you see there on the screen, by being a promoter, which is what we all have to be as an advocate for our business, our product, our service. And we hear about things like street teams. We have people like myself that people employ for doing this type of work for them. However, at the end of the day, you really have to be your biggest salesperson. You have to be your biggest promoter. So that's what this is going to cover, is how to promote your business, your product, your service online and offline. Now, the reason that we're doing this is because there is such a prevalence of solopreneurs, people who are working for themselves, and everybody has a story to tell. It doesn't matter what your business, your product, your service is. Everyone has a story to tell. It's a matter of getting that out there. And there's such an overwhelming information overload that we all suffer from, that you do have to try, unfortunately, to break through the noise and the clutter. And of course, dominating all of that is social media. So many different platforms, all the conversations about so many things, and you're just trying to get your message through and kind of wave your arms around and get people to notice you and what it is that you're doing. And what ends up happening is you don't really know where to start with all of it. So that's why we're doing this today, talking about how to promote yourself and your brand on and offline. And I'm here to tell you that it does all really work. I have seen success with these things as an interviewee when I've gotten myself booked on radio, TV, and other podcasts, and I've been written about in newspapers and online. The podcast that I do, I had somebody on the show who he said to me, when my new CD came out, there were two shows I wanted to get interviewed on first, yours and one other. So that tells me that it's working. And so the active promotion that I do for my podcast, and I will talk about that, I'll talk about my business, but I have seen that the promotion that I've done is what helps better guests see that it's a worthy outlet. So the more that you see the results from these promotional efforts, the more that other people will want to do business with you. When I work with my clients, I always say that we need to show people that you're busy, because then others will take notice and say, well, there must be something here. Look at how much work he or she gets, or look at how much he or she is always doing. So that promotion is what's going to draw more people in to your business, your product, or your service. So if you're making a list, and I encourage you to make a list, I'm going to say this is number one. Forgive me, I probably won't keep track throughout and say this is number 6, this is number 7, etc. But I'm now going to go through a long list of practical steps that you can take to promote yourself and your brand on and offline. And I want you to notice that these things that I'm telling you have little to no cost attached to them. You know, there's obviously things out there that we all know about, like say Facebook ads, for example, which do have a cost to them, but I'm always very budget conscious. When my clients ask me to do the work for them that they're paying me to do, I don't want to hit them with another bill on top of it. So these are things that you can do, starting with number 1, things like media interviews. And so that is going to be television, radio, podcasts, magazines, newspapers, online media. And that's free advertising, because if you take the cost of what it would cost you to actually buy an ad on a TV station or buy an ad in a newspaper or a magazine, and then you get this 5 to 7 minutes where someone is going to talk to you at no charge. Now, mind you, you don't want to sell through the whole thing, but it's establishing your credibility, establishing your authority, and yes, getting your message out there. And people will find you because now they're starting to hear you in all these different places. But number 2 on the list is kind of above and beyond what do you do with those opportunities, meaning after the fact. So it's really good to post media coverage that you get, not only on your website, but I like to turn my clients' audio interviews, so radio or podcast interviews, I like to turn those into videos and post them on YouTube because that's the world's second largest search engine. People can then find you who might not have otherwise found you. Now, it also extends the shelf life of those interviews because if someone didn't hear it live, they didn't miss out. They can still go and look it up. But the other thing that it does for you in terms of putting it on your website is, again, it's that idea of it makes you look in demand, and media people will feel more comfortable in booking you on their show because they've seen that you've done other shows. So once you show how many interviews you're getting, again, it keeps going back to people are going to say, all right, I want to do business with this person because look at how in demand they seem to be. They seem to be everywhere. Look at all these different interviews that they've gotten. Number 3 on the list is to have a business card that is properly branded. Now, I say this, and I can very easily apply this to the real estate industry. I have been approached at a lot of the different podcasting events that I speak at across the country by people who hand me a business card and they'll say, hey, I'd love it if you would check out my podcast. And then I look at their business card and it says Bank of America. And I say, well, what am I supposed to do with this? How is this going to remind me that this person has a podcast and what it's called when I'm at an event where I'm getting a whole bunch of business cards? So if you're a realtor and maybe you are not yet full-time realtor, but yet you have your real estate license and you're practicing, but you hold down another job, don't give people the card for your other job and expect them to remember that you're a realtor, because we know how many realtors are out there. We know how competitive it is. And it's just that slightest difference that if someone's going to look for that card, they might push yours aside and say, I'm not sure what this is. I don't know why I have this. And they're going to find somebody else's. So it's really critical to have a properly branded business card, because that might be the only thing that somebody has to remember you by. And you want it to be something where they're going to immediately look at it, remember you, and contact you. Next on the list is apparel. I know my video is really small right now, but I am actually wearing a shirt that has my company logo on it. You can see my company logo over my shoulder hanging on the wall behind me also. But apparel is also great when the world opens back up and we not only start doing business face-to-face, but you go to conferences like this one in person. I like to print on the back of my shirts also just simply the website address. And what happens is people look at that all day long and they finally say, all right, I've been sitting behind this guy. I make sure I sit way up at the front for that reason. I'll say, I've been staring at the back of this shirt all day. I got to punch up this website address and see what exactly this is. But a cap, a t-shirt, unfortunately, Big Frog is who I used to get everything printed through. And the shop that I used to deal with has closed up, unfortunately, hit by the pandemic, just business suffered. But I now am dealing with their Wesley Chapel location. And I love that with Big Frog, you can go in there and they'll literally say, don't get the shirt from us, just go buy one from Walmart, bring it to us, and we will print it, but they can print on the back also. Like I said, that's valuable real estate. So apparel is a really great way to brand yourself, to brand your business. Next is your email signature. And whenever I say this one, I always kind of stop and laugh a little bit, because I know there are people in the audience who are saying, give me a break, email signature, duh, Bruce, of course. But you'd be surprised. I remember doing this presentation one time, and the next morning in the hotel lobby, somebody stopped me who had seen my presentation the day before, thanked me, said it was really helpful, and then kind of hung her head and she kind of said, you know, the email signature is the one that got me. She said, it's so obvious. She said, and I don't do that. So thank you that you said that one, because the reason I bring it up is because that's such valuable real estate. If you're writing somebody an email and you get to the end and you say, thanks a lot, Bill, Well, guess what, Bill? You just missed a great opportunity to put in your website or to put in links to your social media or both. In my email signature, I have my website, I have links to all of my social media accounts, and I have links to a handful of podcast platforms where people can hear my podcast from. And this also goes into, if you don't have a branded email address, then someone's going to look up and all they're going to see is at gmail.com or at yahoo.com or at Hotmail or at AOL or at whatever. And so they're not going to know where they can go and find more about you. So if it was john@johndoe.com, then they know they can go to johndoe.com and they're going to see all about your real estate services or whatever it is that your business, your product, or your service is. So take advantage of that email signature. Don't get too carried away with it. Mine used to be really obnoxious, and I finally took a step back and said, like, get rid of all the logos, like just text links. That'll get the job done. Next is an e-newsletter, and there's actually a realtor or two that I do get email newsletters from, and I'm thrilled to see realtors taking advantage of that tool, because we get so much email all the time that, of course, with the eye that I have because of the line of work that I'm in, I see the people who are doing it too much, meaning that I can tell they're just trying to sell me. And what I try to do with mine is I limit it to 1 day a week. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, if that gets overlooked, Bruce, now you don't have a chance to get back to in front of them for another week. But that's okay, because I'm doing it every week consistently. I don't miss. It's scheduled, it's on time, it's predictable. But the point is that an email newsletter could literally cost you nothing, just like these other things that I'm talking about here, depending on how many contacts you have on your list. I initially started out doing it just through my website, and my web guy built that for me, and it wasn't costing me anything. I eventually switched over, and there's lots of services out there. So even though I'm using MailChimp, you can use Constant Contact, you can use, the list goes on. But my point is that most of these services, if you're under a certain number of contacts, it's free to use, but it looks a lot more professional. And the point I was starting to make is I just try to be informative, a tad bit entertaining, but give them something useful so that they want to read it. And again, they don't feel like they're being sold to. All of this goes back to keeping your name out there and staying top of mind with people, so that when it does come time to buy a house, or when it does come time to hire a home inspector or whatever line of work you're in, they're going to remember you because you send them these nice, helpful emails once a week. They're going to remember you because you have branded apparel. They're going to remember you because all the things that I'm saying so far, and then I'm going to continue to say. So don't miss out on the opportunity to send people information. And it's helpful if you already have a buyer that you're working with who says, send me properties that my spouse and I can look at. But if you're just trying to attract new business and you're sending them all these listings, I don't think that's the kind of help they want. I think they want to know, well, who are you? Why should I do business with you? Why should I give my business to you and not the next person? And if you look like you're just selling, they know that that's what you're there for. So educate them a little bit more about the market, give them some tips, give them things that maybe others aren't doing that will set you apart, and they'll feel like you're just in the business of helping them out and not trying to get their dollars. Okay, I will tell you more because there's more on this list. So public speaking, I always like to go out of my way to say, even if your talk is about something else. So even though you want real estate business, it doesn't mean that you can only go out and speak about real estate. What you can do is speak on something else that you're qualified to speak on, mind you, but then you can kind of once in a while, occasionally drop in a reference to, as you're giving your speech, maybe you say, well, I'll give you an example. For instance, I'm actually a realtor, and I had a customer the other day, and now you're telling a story, but you got to mention the fact that you're a realtor. So I have my podcast that I referred to before, but I worked in sports for years and years and years. I worked in the Olympic movement. I worked in the National Hockey League. So somebody might want to have me come out to a sports night. But what I'm going to do is I'll talk primarily about sports, whatever they want me to talk about, my experience working in the NHL or in the Olympic movement. but I'll make some references to the podcast during my talk. And when you're sitting down with people before you're introduced to go up and speak, that's a great time to say, hey, look, I'm a realtor, and tell some stories there if you know of anyone that's looking. And then furthermore, when you're done and everybody wants to come up and talk to you, that's when you can really lay it on thick about, okay, look, I'm a realtor, and this is why you're saying this to yourself. I'm a realtor, and this is why I really took the speaking gig, because I want to shake some hands and kiss some babies and let people know about my services. So take some public speaking opportunities so that you can get better at getting yourself out there, being more comfortable as a speaker if you're not already. But then, like I said, using them to kind of interject your real estate business into whatever it is that they're actually asking you to speak about. Now, next on the list is relevant promotional items. Okay, think of something that's going to connect people with you. The example I always like to use is if a home handyman came in to give me an estimate on fixing my dishwasher, and he left me a koozie. Well, what does that koozie have to do with the fact that he's a home handyman? It's not going to make me think of him. If he had given me a screwdriver that is a refrigerator magnet, I'm going to say, okay, thanks for your estimate. Let me think about this and I'll get back to you. What's going to happen is he's going to leave and I'm going to say, boy, I'm not sure if I really want to pay this or not. Let me see if I can fix this dishwasher myself. And you're going to grab that little screwdriver that he just gave you. You're going to kind of jimmy around a little bit, put it back on the fridge. But guess what? That little screwdriver is going to have his name, his website, his telephone number, just the very basics. And when I say his name, it might be his business name. But that's a relevant promotional item. If you're giving out a koozie and you're a CPA, I don't see the connection. And yes, I really do harp. Whenever I do this presentation, I always point to people who give out koozies and people who give out pens. I have a drawer full of pens that every time I open my drawer, my desk drawer, it overflows with all the people that have given me promotional pens. It's not connecting me to your business. I'm not going to look at a pen and say, oh yeah, that reminds me, I need to call the guy about fixing the dishwasher. So come up with a promotional item that is relevant to your business. Now, look at how far we've gone into this presentation before I finally brought up social media, because that's obvious. You should be doing social media. However, keep it separate from your personal accounts. Now, we can get into the whole debate about what Facebook does, about how people see more of your posts that are on your personal page than on your business page. But I'm thinking about something like Instagram, for example. Okay, have an Instagram account, for example, that is just about your real estate business or your home inspection business or whatever your line of work you're in, instead of, here's pictures of us at the beach last weekend. Here's pictures of my kid's birthday party. Oh, by the way, here's a house that I'm listing currently over in Sarasota. You really need to establish your brand. And so if you're kind of mixing, I don't want to say apples and oranges, but apples and oranges, it's not really helping you to advance who you are in the real estate industry. So you really need to, yes, do social media, but yes, do the other things on this list during my presentation. But as I say, keep it separate from personal so that people know, okay, this is John's realtor account, or this is Mary's account on Instagram for the financing help that she gives to potential home buyers. Next is award nominations, and these are good for a bunch of reasons. Number one is you can post on social media about it, because a lot of people get hung up on the last one about social media and they say, well, Bruce, I agree with you on doing that. I just don't know what to post. So if you get yourself nominated for awards, you can put that out there. Number two is it brings credibility to you, and you can start telling potential customers that, hey, I've just been nominated for this award, or I just won this award. And number three is you can put those on your website. And then when people go to your website, they're going to see, okay, this person must be doing something right. Look at, and by the way, like, people aren't going to get hung up on whether you actually won or not. They're going to see that you've either been nominated for a bunch of awards or you've won a bunch of awards. What I do caution you against is if you were nominated for an award in 2013 and you're still kind of hanging your hat on that, well, that was 8 years ago now. So you might want to either ditch that one or really kind of challenge yourself to say, all right, I got to find some opportunities out there where I can get nominated for an award and update this so that I'm telling people something that's a lot more recent. Now, when I say to give your constituents the roadmap for helping your business, don't just tell people like, hey, spread the word. Well, spread the word how? Well, tell people that I'm a realtor and that I'm always looking for business. Well, be careful, because you're not really equipping them with what you want to say. Somebody calls you up and says, hey, my sister's looking for a house in Chicago. I heard that you're a realtor. So-and-so told me. You're going to go, well, I'm in the greater Tampa Bay area. I don't sell houses in Chicago. Well, you should have equipped that person a little bit better. If someone had a great experience with you, now, don't only encourage them to write a review, but tell them where you want them to write the review. Tell them what you'd like them to say. And it doesn't have to be word for word. But if they leave you a review on Yelp and you say, nobody looks on Yelp for realtors, well, you probably should have told them, leave a review on my Facebook page or leave a review on Google about me. So you really want to kind of hold people's hands. If you want them to help you out, you need to let them know what kind of help can they be to you. And more specifically, like I said, what is the message? How can they help you get referrals? I love when I go to networking events and they say, what are you looking for this week? Because you'll see someone who, say, is in maybe the diet and nutrition industry, and they'll say, I'm looking for people who eat. Ha, 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 ha. No, but I really am. Well, that doesn't help. If you're in the skincare industry, you can't say, I'm looking for people who have skin. Ha, 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 ha. I guess that means I'm looking for everybody. No, help these people help you by telling them, are you looking for first-time home buyers? Are you looking for people who are relocating? Are you looking for military? Are you looking for seniors? Are you looking for families? Are you looking for a specific part of town? So really equip people so that they can help you get more business because they know your business better. All right. Yes, I will keep them coming. Okay, so follow me on this one. One of my clients is an author who wrote a book about her 7th great-grandmother. She was a Native American woman in history. And so what I did was I started contacting other interest groups. So for instance, I started contacting museums to say, this is who my client is. This is what her book is about. This is who this woman in history was. I contacted the Florida Council for the Social Studies. I contacted libraries, because it's about kind of thinking, I'm going to use that expression, outside the box, but if you and all of the others who do what you do are all contacting the same people, they can't accommodate everyone. So if you say, well, wait a minute, let me think outside the lines a little bit here. Who else would be interested in my services? Maybe you do rentals. Maybe it might not be a big part of your business, but maybe you put your foot in that door just because it is going to bring in some money, but it's also going to get your name out there further. Think back to the beginning of this when I was talking about getting interviewed. It doesn't just have to be a real estate show. Use your head and say, well, as a realtor, what programs do I know are out there that people are listening to where it would make sense to have a conversation about real estate? For instance, there might be a money show where they're talking about the help that people are getting in terms of the COVID relief. So when they get those checks, if they are going to start looking at buying a house, that's a great time for a realtor to interject and say what he or she is seeing out there. So that's what I say when I say contact other interest groups, is think of, okay, who else would be interested in what I'm doing other than the obvious? I don't know what number we're up to on the list here, but next is gimmicks. And I am a real big fan of gimmicks. So I just launched yesterday, episode 363 of my weekly podcast. I have tried every time I've hit 100, 200, 300 to do something unique. So when I hit episode 100, I went to Publix. I gave them the logo for my podcast, and I asked them to decorate a cake for me to celebrate this milestone. But it gives you something to talk about. Again, this goes back to, Bruce, what do I post about on social media? So you post about the fact that, in my case, I hit 100 episodes. You say, well, what does that do for me as a realtor? Okay, think about something like a milestone, or think about something like it was 1 year ago today. A milestone could be, I just sold my 50th house this year, or it was 1 year ago today that I sold my first property in Apollo Beach, or it was 1 year ago today that the such and such family, that I helped the such and such family get into this home in Waimama, whatever it is. But it gives you talking points so that people can see how much you're doing. You can show people who you're helping. And I keep going back to, this is more that you can post on social media, so you don't have to sit around and stress and say, I have nothing to post. So think about things like gimmicks that you can do. This here was, I don't know if this is necessarily a gimmick, it might be, but if you've been in the Brandon area, you know this law firm. I did not know this law firm. I did no business with them. I didn't know anybody who worked there. I just drove by that sign all the time. And all the time at that sign, I would say, I wish there was some way I could get on there for some reason, because it's such a busy intersection. This is on Lumsden Road in Brandon. And so one day I simply walked in there and I asked. It's just that simple. The worst they could have said was no, but I just told them, look, I'm just a local guy that lives 6 miles from here. I've been in the area for, I don't remember what it was at the time, 14 years or something like that. I do a podcast. It's gotten listeners from all over the world. And I just think it's kind of cool that this podcast that's being heard in over 150 countries is being done by some guy that's in Valrico. Is there a way that you could put something up on the sign? Because I'm about to hit my milestone 200th episode. And they took my information, said, it's possible. Yeah, we'll get back to you. And look at what it resulted in. Congrats, NHTE, on 200 episodes. Visit nhte.net. So when you kind of think outside the box a little bit and you come up with those gimmicks, you're not going to know if they're going to work for you or not if you don't test them out. So in this case, I tested it out. I walked in there and asked. And as I said, the worst they could have said was no, but at least I could tell myself, well, all right, I guess it wasn't meant to be, and I'll move on to the next thing. Is there anything else? You better believe it. Press releases. Press releases are still a thing in 2021, and you can send them to the business media. You can send it if it's market specific, meaning Tampa Bay. You can send it to trade media. If you're a home inspector and you want to know, how can I get more media coverage? Well, if you've got some news, send a press release to the media that covers the home inspection industry. And then, yes, also send it to the business media if it's relevant. For example, the Tampa Bay Business Journal, and of course, something like the Tampa Bay Times, because you're based in the Tampa Bay area. So press releases are definitely still something that you can leverage in 2021. And I want to repeat once again, it doesn't cost you a thing. I do encourage people to write a blog, and it says there regularly, because it's another way of kind of establishing your expertise, showing people that you're a leader in your field. But what it also does is it provides information to people, which is a callback to before when I was talking about the weekly newsletter. So you're providing information in a way that puts you out there, but you're not with your hand out asking for a sale. I just want to challenge you, though, to consider, how frequently do you want to write a blog? I've written a blog every week for, I believe it's 6.5 years now. Every week. I've never missed once. Every week for 6.5 years. And I'm here to tell you, every week is tough. Every week is tough. There are days when I sit there with writer's block, and thankfully I come up with something. I do get guest blogs now and then, but I've also had people that have contacted me out of the blue and said, we'd like to pay to submit a guest blog to you so you can even monetize it. Start a podcast, of course. And as I said, today at 2:00, I'm doing a presentation that I hope you'll come to, called The Power of Podcasting: Enhance Your Brand, Expand Your Reach. It's really, really a great way to establish your expertise, to literally get your voice out there, reach people who otherwise wouldn't know about you, people who you wouldn't be able to get in front of. And obviously, I have had lots and lots and lots of joy, benefits, success from podcasting for what'll be 7 years as of next month. Now, networking, granted, I realize that we're certainly still in the pandemic and networking isn't where it was pre-pandemic, but we know that it will get back to that. But the key word there that you see is networking regularly, just like a blog. So, you can't kind of just do these hit and run kind of things. You can't guest for somebody at BNI and expect people to remember who you are. You have to show up every meeting, whether that's every week, whether it's every other week, whether it's once a month, whatever it is. But out of sight, out of mind is definitely a thing. If you're not there, people aren't going to remember you. And this also goes back to what I was saying before about helping the constituents that could kind of be out there on your behalf. So you need to educate them on what your business is, what you're looking for, what you're not looking for. So when you network, make sure you network regularly. And if you're paying to be a part of these groups, you're going to feel like, okay, I've got some skin in the game here. I'm paying to be a member. I might as well get my money's worth out of it. So let me maximize my investment and show up at these things. And I know, believe me, I know that a lot of groups are meeting online and that you get to a point where you get Zoom burnout, or you say, I can just only attend so many online sessions. But this is your business. This is your livelihood that we're talking about. So why not invest that time to show up at these meetings and stay in touch with people? And hopefully you'll see the referrals start to come in as a result of you being so active in these groups. Okay, one more, please. All right. So I suggest that you cross promote, and then you cross promote. So for example, I talked about blogging. I talked about podcasting. I talked about an e-newsletter. You can send people all throughout those different things. In the newsletter, sometimes I will say, if you didn't see my blog 2 days ago, click here to read that I was writing about insert topic here. People will go and read the blog. And then when they're reading the blog, I will say, I recently mentioned on my weekly Now Hear This Entertainment podcast, and there's a link to go and listen to the podcast. As you're listening to the podcast, you'll hear me telling people, make sure you're signed up for the weekly e-newsletter. And so there's all these ways that you can keep people within your sphere of influence, within your brand, without sending them off to all kinds of other resources or other places where they're going to forget about you. It's just like the concept of on your website, if you're going to send somebody to another website as some kind of resource, make sure it opens up in a new browser window. Otherwise, if it opens in the same one, they're going to forget that they were on your site and they're not going to come back. All right, I know that we're running out of time, but here's one more, which is to repurpose content. So I have a 4-volume ebook series, which I simply did by way of taking content that I had already given out on my podcast. And so I didn't have to do any new work, meaning I didn't have to come up with any new thoughts. I didn't have to sit down and write a book from scratch. I took the content from the podcast, put it into ebook form, and guess what? I'm cross-promoting with that ebook, because inside that ebook, as people are reading it, I'll say, this was taken from episode 179 of the podcast. Click here to go listen to it on, and I give them the actual links. Go here to listen, click here to listen to it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, to listen to it on Spotify, to listen to it on SoundCloud, et cetera, et cetera. So you can repurpose the content that you already have, and then you can marry that with the previous tip, which is to cross-promote. All right, so as we wrap this up here, I know that you are selling homes. I know that you're selling inspection services. I know that you're selling whatever, but we're really here to help people. So I like to think of the music term, a street team. So ask people, this information that you're giving out in your newsletter, on your website, in your blog, whatever, is it getting you ahead? Do you know someone else who would benefit from it? And then tell that person, it is great. I'm so happy to hear that, Stephen. Pay it forward. Let those other people know about this free resource so they can listen in if it's a podcast, so they can read it if it's a newsletter, so they can read it if it's a blog. And in conclusion, I always ask the challenging question, if you don't do these things, then who is going to do them for you? You saw that Read and Read law firm sign that was congratulating me on 200 episodes. Well, if I hadn't walked in there and asked them if they could put something up, nobody else would have walked in there and asked them for me. So consider this list of everything I just gave you in this presentation, and then say, okay, if I don't do these things, who is going to do them for me? So thank you. And I do want to take questions here. I know we're running out of time. You see my email address on the screen there, and the website nowhearthis.biz. And in case you can't see that, HEAR for Now Hear This, and .biz is the website. Obviously on there, you can get in touch with me. There's also my email address on the screen in a lot bigger font size. But there's also links on my website to all the different social media platforms. And right here on this platform that's being used for the mega marketing event, I do have my profile set up so that you can access my different social media and contact me through there as well. So I'd love to hear from you. I do offer one-on-one video consultations. When you go to the homepage of my website, you'll see an article that says video consultations now available, and you can use that to book time with me, and we can do a private one-on-one consultation. I'll show you that right now. And I'd love to help you out with whatever it is that you're being challenged with, or follow-ups to this presentation. You see right there where it says Coach the World, it says video consultations now available. So read there and find the links, and please ask me your questions now or follow up with me, as I said, through my details that are in the profile here on the Hopin platform. And don't forget, at 2 o'clock, I'll be doing that presentation called The Power of Podcasting, Enhance Your Brand, Expand Your Reach. So I hope to see a lot of you there. And you're welcome, Kelly. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Moya. I hope you all found this helpful, and look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you and seeing you in the 2 o'clock session also. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Frank. And Sarah, I don't know if you're still in here, if we want to wrap this up. Sarah is not. Great. Thank you, Jared. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Frank, I'm seeing top right, there's a red button that says leave. So it looks like that's how you would close out of this, or just click in the left column to one of the other sessions or the networking. All right.